for the state since the pandemic began. As some state and local leaders continue to impose new restrictions on where and how people gather, health officials are focused on who will have access to a vaccine first once it's ready. A CDC advisory committee is scheduled to vote during an emergency meeting tomorrow to recommend healthcare workers and those in long-term care facilities have priority for getting a vaccine. The FDA still has not given full approval for a vaccine. The UK is preparing to launch a large-scale vaccination effort by stocking up on doses of promising COVID-19 vaccines. The British government agreed to buy more than 350 million doses of vaccines from 7 producers if they are proven effective. 2 vaccines are being reviewed by a UK regulatory agency. The UK has confirmed more than 58,000 coronavirus-related deaths, the most in Europe. Very positive news on potential vaccine candidates. Millions of people are still out of work, and the pressure is on for Congress to step up and help. Let's bring in Newsy Politics reporter Stephanie Lieberman to talk about where things stand. Stephanie, more coronavirus relief programs are ending in just a matter of weeks. What should we know?
So it's the CARES Act that was passed back in March that sets the deadline at the end of the year. So this is a wide variety of programs that are set to end as of December 30th. So we're talking about the extended unemployment benefits, extended paid family leave, a pause on those federal student loan payments, eviction protections, and aid for local and state governments. Now, the student loan payments, for example, not only will payments be due for millions of borrowers across the country, but the interest will start getting charged again on those accounts, and wage garnishment will begin again for people who might have had their loans in default. For paid family leave, this could be a struggle for families if their kids are still in virtual school. So there's a lot of these programs that are expected to impact millions of Americans if they do end up lapsing at the end of the year. Now, there are some states that are stepping up to pass protections within their borders. New Mexico, for example, just...
Let me ask a question. So are these programs urgent? The answer is yes. Should Congress continue them? Absolutely yes. That should be the main agenda at this time, to protect the American public, the general welfare, to make sure that people are able to feed themselves, to make sure that people do not go into debt, to make sure that the American public is secure even during this pandemic. Now, this should be number one on the agenda. And let's see what else she's going to say.
Just passed a statewide COVID relief bill, and Colorado is starting to meet for a special session today. But as of right now, millions of people are set to lose some kind of protection at the end of the year, Lauren, as the CARES Act benefit programs expire.
President-elect Joe Biden says we need another COVID relief bill before the end of the year. Is there any sign that that will happen?
Well, unfortunately, negotiations are still stalled, and they're stalled in the same place that they have been for months now. The Democrats and Speaker Nancy Pelosi, they want to see more aid for state and local governments. Democrats are also fighting to extend many of the existing programs we were just talking about, that extend those through September 30th of next year. So to give families across the country months more of that added benefit. Now, Republicans and Senator Mitch McConnell, they're really fighting for liability protection for businesses that are open to avoid.
Okay, so one wants to what? Make sure the American public is safe, all right, and secure. And the other says, oh, let's just go ahead and give businesses more protection when that's what's going on. It's not equivalency going on here. The major thing we should be doing is helping the American public first, and then they can argue about business liability later on.
Lawsuits from either customers or employers. McConnell has really stepped in as the key negotiator for Republicans. It's not really Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin that's been leading the negotiations on those sides. So this, as I said, is the exact same sticking points that we have been at for months. And so the fact that we are still in the exact same place as we were months ago, even with the pandemic starting to surge again, it really just kind of shows there's an unwillingness to compromise on both sides of the aisle, Lauren.
It definitely speaks volumes. And, Congress is running up against another deadline.
Again, what's the urgency? The urgency is to protect the American public. That's the urgency.
December 11th. What's stopping lawmakers from agreeing to avoid another shutdown?
Well, I would think that lawmakers certainly don't want to combine the impacts of a government shutdown with an ongoing pandemic. Of course, this spending deadline is the annual 12 spending bills the Congress has to pass every year to keep the government funded. Now, they could pass another short-term spending bill called the short gap bill, which would avoid a shutdown in the immediate and would maybe even, depending on the deadline they give, they could punt the next big budget deadline to the Biden administration. But anything they do right now, whether it's a full fiscal year funding or whether it's a short-term deal, any deal right now would require President Trump's approval. And remember, he prompted a government shutdown over the border wall about 2 years ago. So Congress certainly has to do something. What exactly they do is still unknown, but passing a budget of some kind is really the only must-do action on Congress's agenda before December 11th.
All right, well, let's see if they can convene and get it done. Stephanie Liebergen, thank you very much. Another program needing funding, vaccine distribution. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said billions of dollars in federal funds are needed to distribute a COVID vaccine.
We're here to make it clear. Getting to this point of a vaccine was hard enough, and we commend the work that was done to bring us here. But it's only half the work that needs to be done. A successful COVID rollout will require about $30 billion in federal funds to make sure the vaccine gets into people's arms.
The senator from New York said his state will need hundreds of millions of dollars for its vaccine program and believes a majority of states will need the same. He called on McConnell to put the HEROES bill up for a Senate vote to get the money required to distribute a vaccine. President-elect